just don't know how to get past that defensive barrier to where they just react in such a negative way, and it's just there for them. Like, I just don't know what I can do.
Well, let me ask this real quick.
Yeah.
Is this a one-way problem? I mean, does she constantly share her beliefs with you?
Well, it's not that she just shares her beliefs. It's the fact that she's very, she goes to church all the time, and her friends kind of look down on our relationship because they say, "Oh, what are you doing with this guy?"
Mm-hmm.
Because he doesn't believe what we believe, and it's very, like a full social group or whatever. It's just like, I can't. There's nothing I can do to say to her, "Hey, this is something that maybe I'm not crazy. I'm not the devil. I'm not someone who's trying to say that maybe no God exists at all. But I am someone that says this doesn't make any sense, and you're relying on just text, and they don't even want to open their eyes for 2 seconds to soak in anything because they're so scared. I think that's really what it is. That she's scared that she's gonna be judged, or it's just the way it is because of the way it is.
That's a powerful thing. I don't know. Did you have?
I was just, how long has this been going on?
Like 4 months.
Okay,
and it's gotten to the point where it's just like, well, this is what I believe, and I'm not, I'm just not moving, and it just breaks it's just so heartbreaking to me.
What if you could see, like in a magic 8-ball, that in the future she will never change her attitude? Would you still stay?
Well, you see, I have a son too. That's not a contradiction. That's another thing. Like, oh, I should be raising this way as opposed to this way. Love is a funny thing, and you want to ignore stuff like that, but you just don't know how much you can take before you want to have hope, and I don't know. I can't put an answer on that because there's a lot of different things that come onto it.
I guess what I'm asking you is like, if you want to spend the rest of your life with this person, are you willing to accept them exactly as they are right now?
And
can you do that?
I think you know my answer. But that doesn't change the fact that I might have,
sure,
both of
sure, and the fact that there's a kid in the situation as well is a big deal. And you're going to have, even if you decided to end the relationship, you're going to have a lot of issues with regard to how this kid's raised.
Exactly, because his mother. This isn't his mother. But his mother is that way too.
Well, sure. We've had, on the one hand, I know couples who seem to be doing just fine, where one of them is an atheist and one of them is not. And I know other couples where this has been an absolutely devastating, irrecoverable change. And I think it's happened for a lot of people after they've been married. I've heard from people who are like, hey, we got married, we were both religious. In some cases, I was a preacher type thing, and now I'm not, and my wife doesn't know, now I'm not, and my wife knows, or my husband knows, and this is a source of conflict. And what are we going to do? We can't reconcile this. We still love each other, we still want to be with each other, but this is such a big deal. I have no idea. It's kind of on an individual basis of what do you think is going to make you the happiest. And other people have asked, should I come out? Well, we can't make a determination as to whether somebody else should or shouldn't come out, but the kind of stock answer that we've been giving is, if you're not willing to lose everyone and everything that you love and care about and be ostracized and have your world turned upside down, then don't. But if it's more important for you to live honestly and be appreciated for who you are and what you believe than it is that you maintain the relationships that you have, then do. And if you think, in your case you're already out, obviously you're having these conversations, but the same thing kind of goes for the relationship. And Tracy was absolutely right. If you're convinced that you can subsist in the relationship the way you are without nothing ever changing, that's what you have to start with as a default. You can't go into a relationship or try to continue a relationship thinking, maybe down the line I'll be able to change this person, because the odds are often slim, but it's not a good foundation for a relationship, the idea that you might be able to change someone else.
There is one other thing I can offer you beyond the just take it or leave it concept, and that is if you, depending on how serious this relationship is, if you're interested in couples counseling, one thing counseling is good for is helping people communicate in ways that are not stressful. So it's very possible that you could go to her and just simply say, this is causing a lot of distress for me, and would you come with me to counseling so that we at least can find a way to communicate with each other, or find a way to put this on a shelf to where it's not going to cause as much of a problem that it's been causing. Because it sounds to me like your frustration is with the communication aspect of it. And it could be that there is a method of correcting the communication to make this more amenable to you, to make it less stressful to be in that situation. But I don't know how you communicate with her. So, but you could go to counseling, and they could make an assessment as to whether or not you guys could work out a better communication system that would alleviate at least some of the stress that you feel with these differences.
And on the communication front, I've said this before too, but I highly recommend that you don't get married until you've had all of the difficult conversations that you're likely to have, and that you have a good understanding of what the other person's position is, and have arranged some kind of compromise, some sort of agreement about how things are going to be handled. You know, it's just as silly for a theist and an atheist to think, okay, we're going to go ahead and get married because we're in love, without having these conversations, as it is for two theists or two atheists to get married without having conversations about, do you want kids? Do you want more kids? How many kids do you have? How are we going to raise those kids? Hey, what are we going to do when this type of conflict arises? What if one of us drastically changes who we are? You know, all of those, you know, conversations need to happen. As somebody who's getting married,
individual. Yeah, because I mean, I told my dad, and he agrees with everything that I say about the Bible. It's, you know, it's immoral. It's, you know, all this stuff. But when it comes to the last line of defense, as I like to call it, as in personal experience, you know, it's just that last, you know, thing where they're just like, oh, well, you know, and again, what makes them so special, I don't know. But I mean, you know, I don't want to take up too much of your time here talking about, you know, me and my situation. But appreciate your views.
Yeah, that's a tough spot. Good luck to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks much, Jackson.
Thank you.
As a reminder, I thought that we were going to have Dave Silverman from American Atheist calling in today, and it may be that the lines got bogged down before he got a chance to get in. So, but if not, the American Atheist National Convention is coming up from April 21st through the 24th in Des Moines. Thank you. I still got plenty of stuff to do. I'll be speaking there, and right now I think tentatively it's scheduled, mine's for Sunday afternoon. And Dave asked me the other day what my topic was going to be, and I hadn't actually decided. And so while I'm sitting there wondering what I can type as kind of a placeholder, I told him, I said, just title it Changing Minds. And then as soon as I had said it, a bunch of ideas came in. So I'm going down that route at the convention, where we're going to talk a little bit about changing minds, not only how they change, but actual responses that we've gotten here. And I've had 3 or 4 in the last week from people who have changed their minds. I was a theist, now I'm not, and it's because of, you know, Dawkins, Hitchens, Harris, the Atheist Experience, whatever, and what sort of things actually change people's minds. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the convention. You can visit atheist.org for more information about American Atheists and that convention as well. But all right, we've got in Toronto, Michael, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for calling.
No problem. I'm actually calling because a friend of mine, an atheist, I myself am a theist, but he's been kind of trying to get me to call in for the last couple of weeks and, you know, argue my case for theism, I suppose. So if that's all right with you.
Sure. What kind of a theist are you?
Well, I was raised Catholic around, I don't know, when I was in high school. I kind of went through a period of atheism and kind of just came back to Catholicism, but in probably a more philosophical kind of approach to it, rather than sort of like a blind sort of just having been raised that way kind of thing.
Right.
So there was definitely a period where I did quite a bit of questioning. Anyways, what I would like to do is talk about. Basically, I just wanted to establish maybe a framework under which theism could be thought of as like a reasonable belief for a logically consistent person to hold.
Sure.
So I think that the question, obviously, is quite a broad question. And I think that before we really get started, we have to talk about what defines a rational belief. And in kind of to just sum it up, basically, I think that we have to, personally myself, I know that most of the atheists I've talked to aren't, but I like to think of myself as kind of like a rationalist, in the sense that I use like logical principles rather than, not at the exclusion of, but I think that logic trumps empiricism, which is, I understand, kind of controversial, but I think that if something can be established vis-a-vis the law of non-contradiction, then it is irrefutably true, and or not true, and logical axioms having been built up from that and other such laws, I think that the most powerful tool can be used to locate knowledge and belief.
Sure, so you're an advocate of pure reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in the sense that, obviously, I don't discount scientific discovery. That would be pretty foolish. But I think that something need not be empirically demonstrable, at least hypothetically, in order to be reasonable, and so long as it can be demonstrated from a principle of reason instead. So.
And you're going to get a slight disagreement there, probably from both of us, and maybe for slightly different reasons. So I'll let Tracy.
Well, I just have a question, really. I mean, I want to just clarify the statement that logic trumps empiricism. If somebody were to convince me logically, like they put forward a logical argument that I agree with, and I say, yes, I believe this is logically true, and then empirically somebody demonstrates the opposite of what I just committed to logically, you would say that the logical conclusion then would trump the empirical evidence that demonstrates that I'm in fact incorrect?
No. What I would actually say is that, what I mean to say is that empiricism is itself based on logical principles rather than logic being based on empirical principles. So from an epistemic point of view, we have something like classical British empiricism rising with, like, say, Hume, but with that, we have this idea that it's built on logical constructs. There's actually an interesting part in his Inquiry on Human Understanding where Hume talks about how the idea of causation itself is really just a customary inference. The idea that when we drop a rock and it falls, we kind of take that in experience, judging by the fact that it happens all the time, that it's going to happen every time. But really, despite the fact that we have various scientific explanations, it's still kind of an inference that we make, and I think it's a valid inference, obviously, but there are still axioms that we have to take in order to validate empiricism, is really what I'm getting at, because there's, of course, the...
well, no, I wouldn't say that there are axioms that we have to accept in order to validate empiricism. I would say empiricism validates itself. Although, given what your answer to Tracy's question, we may actually agree about that. But the show is much, much shorter now. It used to be 90 minutes, and now it's an hour, so there's only like 17 minutes left, and there's a bunch of people. So can you get to like the nuts and bolts of your argument for rational theism?
All right, well, rational theism, I would say you first have to establish rational deism, because, well, you can't do much if you don't have at least deism.
But I would consider deism a subset of theism.